All right, welcome to the Explainer. So today we're looking at some source material that is, well, it's incredibly provocative and, honestly, extraordinarily brief. We're literally taking a magnifying glass to just a single, incredibly dense fragment of text. But, sometimes the absolute most profound shifts in how we understand our own minds, they're completely hidden within just a handful of carefully chosen words. So let's just deconstruct this thing piece by piece.
Okay, let's dive into this. Excerpts from The Architecture of Forgetting. 6. How your brain decides what to forget. Just let the weight of those specific words settle for a second, right? Because this single line actually contains a complete revolution in cognitive framing. It absolutely challenges everything we intuitively assume about memory.
To really get a grasp on this source material, we actually need to isolate the first half of that text, The Architecture of Forgetting. I want you to just pause and deeply consider that pairing for a moment. Because normally we associate memory loss with, decay, with the breakdown of a system, or maybe like a leaky bucket where things just sort of randomly fall out. But what actually happens when we pair the concept of losing a memory with the concept of structural design?
Well, to answer that, we have to look directly at the definition of our core word here, architecture. It is the complex or carefully designed structure of something. By taking this specific word and applying it to the act of forgetting, the author is forcing this massive paradigm shift on us. Think about it. Forgetting isn't just some accident. It's not a failure. Rather, it's a carefully designed, active construction.
So the crucial point is, when we frame forgetting through the lens of architecture, we have to acknowledge that it's built, it's designed, and it is highly structured. Viewing memory loss as this sort of built environment, it completely flips our standard understanding upside down. It means your mind isn't just, losing its grip on the past. Actually, scratch that. It's more like it's actively constructing the space for your current consciousness by intentionally removing whatever doesn't fit the blueprint anymore.
Now look at exactly how the source text organizes this idea. We see the number 6, right? Followed by how your brain decides. Just focus on that number 6 for a second, because the source is implying a sequential mechanical list here. Logically, if there's a chapter or a section 6, there were 5 steps or concepts that had to come before it, right? This single number reveals that the author views this mental architecture not as some sort of abstract poetry, but as a highly systematic step-by-step function, one that can literally be mapped out and numbered.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the clear conflict between what we naturally assume and what the text actually proposes. On one hand, we have the standard passive view, losing a memory. It sounds totally accidental, kind of like misplacing your keys, right? But then we have the source's active framework, your brain decides. And this highlights a massive shift. We're moving from being a victim of a deteriorating mind to being the host of a highly active, totally deliberate filtering process.
And honestly, that brings us to the single most powerful word in the entire source text, decides. Just think about the immense agency that text gives to your subconscious brain. Notice how it doesn't say how your brain experiences forgetting, or even how it manages loss. No, it decides.
Let's quickly unpack the literal definition of this word just to see why that agency matters so much here. To decide is to come to a resolution in the mind as a result of consideration. And man, this just brilliantly illustrates the core thesis hidden in our source material. The author firmly believes that forgetting requires active consideration. It requires a definitive resolution. Your brain is literally in there weighing the evidence and ruling on the final outcome.
Let's move to and see how this builds into a fully functional framework. Because if the brain truly decides what to forget, well, this logical cognitive routine absolutely must exist. Step 1, evaluate information. The brain has to look at the incoming data. Step 2, make a decision. It's weighing the value of keeping that information against the energetic cost of storing it. And then step 3, actively forget. This is the execution of the blueprint, the actual removal of the data.
Which leads us directly to the ultimate question derived from our source text. And honestly, it's one I really want you to take with you today. If forgetting is this constant architectural decision-making process that is happening in the background of your consciousness every single second, what is your brain deciding to forget right now? Thanks so much for exploring this blueprint of the mind with me.